What's up, War Report family? We are back at the end of day 2 of SEC Media Days. Joining me is a long-time anticipated guest. I've been wanting to get this guy on for a while, Jacob Goins with ESPN 106.7. Jacob, we're here in Dallas at Media Days. The great commissioner decided to put this here to placate to Oklahoma and Texas joining the conference.
Sure.
There were some questions asked of him this morning. He seemed a little defiant about the prospect of adding FSU and Clemson maybe to the conference. He said, listen, I'm focused on my 16. But listen, the 14 that were already here know what it's like, right? And of that 14, we cover Auburn. Hugh Freeze comes on Thursday. You know, what are you expecting to hear from Hugh Freeze in year 2 of this thing? He's underwhelmed a little bit in year 1.
Well, to go on Greg Sankey for just a second, I mean, he was, I would say, a little defensive, right?
Yeah,
in terms
right.
of we're not actively searching, we're not looking for other teams, but I guarantee you, if an opportunity comes up for a Clemson or Florida State to join the SEC before they would go somewhere else, like the Big Ten or even the ACE, or go to like the Big 12 or whatever the case may be, Greg Sankey would make sure that they came to the SEC first. And so, while they may not be actively looking for those schools, they would be okay if they joined the SEC. But in terms of Hugh Freeze and Auburn, I mean, I expect Hugh Freeze to be cool, calm, collected. I anticipate him and the players, especially Payton Thorne, to really own what happened a year ago with losing to New Mexico State, with losing on 4th and 31, and getting embarrassed in the bowl game. I mean, I expect them to embrace that, to own it, but explain to us and the entire SEC how they're going to change that and how they're going to fix that and make it better and overcome what that was a year ago. Because, look, this year the roster is much improved, the coaching has much improved, and the schedule is much improved. Like, everything comes together this year. It almost feels like a year 3 or 4, but we know that it's not, and that it will be a year 2 under Hugh Freeze where there are still some deficiencies in the roster and there's still some things to get figured out. And so I expect Hugh Freeze to be very open. I expect him to be very honest about what happened a year ago, but also be excited about what they bring in for 2024.
Of the players that they decided to bring, Eugene Asante, I think no surprise to anybody.
Yep.
Payton Thorne, which he kind of had to bring him this year, right? Like, I mean, you put your full weight behind your quarterback and you don't take him to media days. Nothing you said about him in the offseason matters, in my opinion. But Keldric Faulk was a little bit of a surprise, I think, to most of us that he got chosen. What do you make of Keldric Faulk making the SEC Media Days trip? I
mean, he's a sophomore, right? A rising sophomore, and he's going to be representing Auburn football. Like, that's such a big deal, right? That's such a huge honor for him. And we know the jump he took going into his freshman year. He was talented. We knew that, but he just lit it up. And Hugh Freeze and the entire defensive staff were just so excited for him, and they expect him to do that again and take another jump this year. So, yeah, while it may be surprising that it's Keldric Faulk or a sophomore, it's not surprising when you really just dig deep and think about it. And for him to be paired up with Eugene Asante, who's an incredible linebacker, a guy that we talk with on ESPN 106.7 every week, he's just awesome. He's an energetic guy. He loves Auburn, and he's the same guy no matter what, whether he's on the field, in the locker room, on campus, on the radio, in interviews. He's the same guy all the time, and he's somebody that is going to anchor, in a good way, the Auburn defense this season with a stacked linebacker room. And with Payton Thorne, I was a little surprised that Hugh Freeze did it, just because I didn't know if he was ready to take this step. Now, he did back it up and say, look, Peyton's my guy. We're not going to pay, $1 million for a quarterback and do all that mess. But this is the last big step before you name him the starter, of bringing him to SEC Media Days and stating it without stating it, this is our guy. And look, Payton, it's not going to be an easy day for him. He's going to, like I was saying earlier, he has to answer for what happened a year ago. And even in the wins, the ugly ones at Vanderbilt, horrible interceptions and bad decision-making and things like that, like, he has to answer those questions, but he also gets the opportunity to talk about all the new toys that he has on the outside and all those new weapons that he gets to use, and the fact that Jarquez Hunter's back for another year, and Hugh Freeze, we believe, is going to have more control over the offense. And so while he'll have to answer some of the difficult ones, Payton Thorne has a chance to convince people before he touches the field this fall that he's the guy. And so out of those three, I'm really pumped. I'm intrigued to see what they say. And yeah, Keldric Faulk, man, what an honor it is for him to be a rising sophomore and to be representing Auburn on Thursday.
I think all eyes are going to be on Payton Thorne.
No doubt.
Bottom of the league in passing last year. And you mentioned all the new toys. I wonder how much pressure that puts on him because, look, the receivers took a good brunt of the blame for what went wrong. And it was like, well, if you put better receivers around him, he'll be a better quarterback. And, you know, some of the guys that left, I can tell you, didn't feel like it was as much their fault as was being painted in the media.
Right.
So with Cam Coleman, with DeAndre Lambert-Smith, with Robert Lewis from Georgia State, who they're all perceived to be instant upgrades at that position, if it doesn't look good early, how early does Hugh Freeze pull the plug on Payton Thorne and say, hey, listen, we gave you your shot, but yeah, maybe we need to go another direction?
That's been a huge conversation this offseason throughout the summer, really coming out of spring, is what's that leash, right? How much give do they have on Payton Thorne? Because if you're Hugh Freeze, you also have to start thinking about your future. Like, yes, you are recruiting quarterbacks right now, but you are hoping that one of the guys in the room could take over and be the man if you needed him to. And so do you want that to be on the road in Athens for the first time, or when it's in Lexington or Como? Like, do you really want to start Hank Brown and Como on that Saturday morning? I don't think that's the best option, but you can't just say, all right, here you go, Payton, you didn't work out. Here you are, a road game in October for Hank Brown or whoever. So I think it's Arkansas. I really do. I think because if you don't look good against your first two cupcakes, Cal and Arkansas, then you're not going to look good against Oklahoma the next week.
Is it fair to him, Hank Brown, to throw him to the Wolves versus Oklahoma after, you know, maybe, I mean, here's I think the nightmare scenario for Auburn. Hang with me on this one. Payton Thorne plays just good enough, but not great. Mm-hmm. And maybe against A&M in New Mexico, he's in those games a little longer than you would like. So Hank may not be getting those reps on the back end of what should be blowouts. And then Arkansas is not what you want. It's an L or a close win. Yeah. Right? Now you've got to make a decision going into Oklahoma, and you're pulling Hank Brown off the bench, kind of like you did in the bowl game, and saying, all right, buddy, go out there and play. Get
good luck. Yeah. And look, Maryland is Oklahoma's not Maryland, okay? Let's be real. And Oklahoma's going to have their starters. It ain't going to be their second and third string. And we heard Brent Venables talk from Oklahoma today. That defense is going to be nasty. Yeah. Like the offseason or the offense is the question mark with the Sooners, but defense is going to be legit. And so, yeah, do you really want to start Hank Brown or any of the quarterbacks, whether it's him or Holden or whoever? Like, do you really want to start somebody against Oklahoma for their first legit college start? Yes, it's at home, but man, that Oklahoma game is just so important to Auburn's season this year, because if you win that and you're 5-0 going to Athens, you have everything in front of you. Even if you don't win the Georgia game, you still have those road games in October, a home game versus Texas A&M, and a road Iron Bowl without Nick Saban. Like, everything is in front of you if you start 5-0, but it all depends on the quarterback play. And whether that be Payton Thorne or somebody else, you got to get it right if you're Hugh Freeze. But he has shown that he's confident in Payton Thorne, didn't get one in the portal, and he's bringing him to SEC Media Days. That's a pretty good vote of confidence from Hugh Freeze.
A little bit different of a schedule, Jacob. So I'm going to paint a picture for you. This will be the first time since 1991 that LSU and Auburn have not played. Yeah. 1989 was the last time that Auburn and Ole Miss didn't play. And it was 1951 was the last time that Mississippi State and Auburn were on each other's schedules. So you've replaced them with Oklahoma, Missouri, and Kentucky. Right? Of those three games, which do you think? I'm going to close with this. What is the most important game for Auburn to get of those three?
Oklahoma, Missouri, and Kentucky?
Yeah.
Oklahoma, for sure. No doubt about it. It's Oklahoma. To go back to what I was saying, you go 5-0, then you really feel good about yourself, because then the only other home games you have that are in the SEC are Vanderbilt and Texas A&M. And if you beat Oklahoma, you feel that you could definitely beat Vanderbilt, and you have a good shot against A&M, who is one of the biggest question marks this season in the SEC. Then you go on the road and you don't have as much pressure to get those much needed wins, right? You can slip up against Missouri or even Kentucky possibly. You don't want that, but you could. Whereas I just don't think it's as necessary for you to go in and beat Missouri. Like, you'd love to do it. And will Missouri be as good as people say they are? Probably not, but that's still a tough place to play. It's a tough team to beat. So, yeah, it's Oklahoma. There's no doubt about it. It's the most important game on the schedule for Auburn in 2024.
It's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. I know Auburn fans are going to be dialed in for those first 5 games. We're dialed in here with Jacob Goins from ESPN 1067. Check them out. He does a great job over there. Guys, that's it for another great edition live from Media Days. I'm with Jacob Goins. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. And while you're at it, visit our sponsor, The Rogue Shop, at therogueshop.com. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, The Rogue Shop has you covered. They've been great sponsors of us, and they're part of the reason that we're here. So please visit them. Use code REPORT to get 15% off that order. We're signing off, and as always,